This is Undaunted.Life, a man's podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Let's get into it. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." That is Genesis 1:26. Guys, I'm thrilled to be with you today. It has been a minute since we have done a solo episode, guys. I know a lot of you have loved the interviews. They've been some great interviews lately, just absolute bangers. So those have been great to get out to you, but I've had a whole bunch of quick hitters. So those of you know that when I do my quick hitters for my solo shows, I basically have this note that's going on in my phone, and it's just this like super long note, and I just have all these topics and things that have come up in culture and the news that I want to talk about. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of like clean them out. I'm calling it the clean out, all right? So over the next few weeks, we're going to be cleaning out the backlog of quick hitters before we run into a bunch of huge interviews again. But as always, I want to say we're so thankful to you, our donors, and if you have not left a review of this show, a 5-star review of this show, or shared it with a friend, make sure you do so. So today in the quick hitter section, we're going to be covering the Church of 1122 in Jacksonville, Florida, baptizing almost 2,000 people on the same day. Former President Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis and one of the biggest scandals in American presidential history. A brain-dead woman being kept alive to save her unborn child. 2 Israeli diplomats being murdered in Washington, D.C. by someone yelling, "Free, free Palestine." And Democrats revealing the one kind of refugee that they definitely do not want in the United States of America. But before we get to any of that, we need to pay tribute to a very, very special person, and that is the great American Christian patriarch, Phil Robertson. So by the time you guys are going to be listening to this, you've all been well aware and notified that he died on Sunday, May the 25th. He was surrounded by family, and he was holding hands with Miss Kay when he passed. And so I was actually at a POD concert. It was a huge radio show, so it was like POD, Chevelle, Marilyn Manson. Like, it was kind of a crazy show. But I was there with Sonny from POD, and I get the message that he had passed. And so I obviously knew that he had been sick. I knew that he was sick for a while before the public knew that he was sick, obviously because of my relationship with Phil and the rest of the Robertson family. And so the family, it was kind of interesting because the family wasn't well, of course they were sad that Phil was sick, but the thing is with his particular sickness, with, dementia, Alzheimer's, those types of things, is they were just hoping for his sake and for the entire family's sake that it would not be a prolonged sickness, and it didn't end up being as prolonged as it certainly could have. So it was a form of mercy that he went fairly quickly after his public diagnosis. And, even though I knew that this was coming, I knew that Phil was going to pass, obviously, at some point. Our numbers coming up for all of us. I was still shocked by it. I was still kind of floored. Like, here I am, like, in between sets. I'm about to go catch POD for the first time in years. And, there's 20,000 people at this outdoor venue. It's 1 billion degrees outside in Texas. And, I was just, very, very choked up and very moved. And immediately the tributes were coming out full force and from, every corner of the planet. And so it was still very shocking. But, I did the show, hung out with Sonny and the rest of the guys from POD, and then I needed to hit the road and get back to Oklahoma because it was actually the night before the MRF, right? So it's like, okay, I got to drive home about 3.5 hours, try to get some rest so that I can wake up and do the MRF. And, it's kind of a long drive. I don't really like driving for that length of time. It was super rainy, and so you kind of had to slow down throughout different times. So I had a very, very long, rainy drive to think about any number of things, listen to podcasts, but I just kept being reminded of the impact that Phil Robertson had for the kingdom, for millions of people that have been introduced to him and his family through the podcast, through the Duck Dynasty show, through his stuff in the duck call world, and personally the impact that he had on me. Just a tremendous personal impact in the time that I was able to spend with him in these last few years. And so on this particular podcast today, we've got a lot of business to get to, a lot of stuff to cover. But before we go any further, I do want to pay tribute to Phil. And there's going to be a lot of long tributes, and this one probably won't be super duper long, but there are 3 main things that I was thinking about as I was driving and over these last couple of weeks that have, that I just want to pass on to you guys and remind you. So the first thing is, I can't recall, because I tried to remember a time, but I can't recall a time ever being around Phil, whether it was in his house, in the studio, in his, hunting barn or whatever, where his old tattered Bible wasn't nearby. Like if it wasn't, in his hands, like it was sitting right next to him. The first time I interviewed him, he was sitting in his chair in his living room and I was here in studio, and, the Bible's just right there in his lap. And it was like the Bible was part of him, right? I've said before that this is a man that has just spent 50 years being marinated in the scriptures, so it just comes out in normal conversation. But he's just flipping from this part of the Bible to that part of the Bible, just saying, look here, man. And then he would just read this quote and read that quote. And it's really, inspired me because, I've got my smartphone. I've got like 5 or 6 different Bible apps. I've got the, all the ones that you've heard of before. And then I've got the Logos Bible software here on my phone. And, I still don't know if I'm fully smart enough to use it, but, I've got it all right there. So technically I've always got my Bible on me. But it's just very different when you're carrying a physical Bible. Zach from the Forging Table, he talked about that. Like he would study the Bible at home and he would do it on his laptop and his iPad. And his kids and his wife just figured he was just working, right? Because they didn't see a Bible. They didn't know that Dad was studying the Bible. And so he went and got a really nice leather Bible so that his kids can see, no, Dad's actually spending time in the Word, spending time with God. And so that's been an inspiration to me, and it's making me rethink how I'm going to approach Bible study and having the Word around me. A second thing I thought about is Phil Robertson helped me directly to lead 30 plus prisoners to Christ. So a few years ago, you guys have heard me talk about this, and we get new listeners every week. We're so thankful for you, so I'll tell the story. I get an invitation to go speak at Lewisburg Prison up in Pennsylvania. A huge fan of the show, is the chaplain up there, and so we were able to square that away and work it out. And I was just really feeling the pressure because I wasn't scared to go to a prison and be in the same, building with some of these guys. Because, it was murderers and rapists and armed robbers and kidnappers. And like, it was a full on, it's a serious prison, right? MS-13's there. And, what? So I get stabbed to death, like doing prison ministry. Like there are worse ways to go out, right? And so I wasn't really worried about that, but I was just worried about leaving an indelible impact on these men, right? And I knew that Phil Robertson had spent a lot of time in Angola, a prison there in Louisiana, and some other prisons, preaching the gospel and talking to these men. And, Phil's just very out there with his message and very like straightforward, like straight to the point with it. And so I called him and we got on the phone and we just, kind of talked through it a little bit. And it was a short conversation, but he basically said, Kyle, here's the thing. You just have to tell these men that they can be under lock and key, but they can still be free. And that was my message. And I used that line whenever I spoke there at Lewisburg Prison. I spoke there twice in one day. And that line, you would get an audible like, ooh, from the guys that were listening to this. And these guys have been forgotten. They hadn't had somebody come and speak to them in years. And then here's this, fired up redhead coming in there. And, he helped me take the right approach with these men. And he didn't tell me to do this, but I just kind of felt it when I was in the room because I love to, reintroduce myself to people before I get up and speak to kind of like, hey, I know I have a weird job. I got a mic on my face, but like, let's just take it easy. And the first words out of my mouth when I got in front of these prisoners is, look, guys, you guys have crossed the laws of man. And that's why whenever I'm done today, I get to leave and go home and you have to stay here. But all of us in this room have crossed the laws of God. So in that way, we are brothers. So if we can just dispel with this idea that somehow we're different, that'll really help us out over the next hour or so. And big eyes, these guys are leaning forward. They're like, okay, there's something different about this guy. Well, that's because of Phil Robertson. And so that day we had, over 30 people, somewhere maybe around 36 guys, raise their hand and indicate, many of them for the first time, a saving faith in Jesus Christ. And I have to just give it up to Phil for helping me with that. But the third thing, and I will remember this until the day that I die, is a private message he gave to me after our last interview that we ever did together, and that was episode 506 of this podcast, so you should go and check it out. So every summer I go down and I do episodes of the Unashamed podcast, and so I went down there, we do the episode, it was, me, Al, Jason, Phil, and then afterwards, Phil just hung out, and he and I did like another 45 minutes or so talking about his latest book and just talking about ministry overall. And as is true with most conversations with Phil or interviews, you go in with a certain idea of what you're going to do and what you're going to cover, and then there's just whatever Phil ends up wanting to talk about, and everything always kind of comes back to the gospel, isn't it? So interesting. And so we do this interview. It's great fun. I thank him for helping me with the prison ministry stuff and all that. And he says, we in this together, man, brothers. And he sticks out his knuckles, and we do a pound across the table. And then, that in and of itself would have been cool, great way to end an interview. But as soon as the cameras stop rolling, right? As soon as the recording stopped, typically, again, Phil's not a man of many words, and he's got stuff he's got to go do. He typically grabs his Bible, shakes your hand, and gets on with it, right? Heads home to Miss K or heads on to the next thing. He stands up from the table. Again, I wish we had this on video, but it's almost sweeter that it was just him and I that were paying attention and listening. He gets up from the table. He walks around the table and he shakes my hand. He gets real close and he looks at me in the eye and he says, "No matter what, you keep going. I believe in you. You've got the anointing of God on you, and I love you." Right? And that has such a big impact because, when you do something like what I do, I'm at the tip of the spear on a lot of this stuff, right? And when you're at the tip of the spear, it can be fairly lonely, right? Some of you guys know what I'm talking about because you're in that kind of a setting. And to hear someone like that who had been so faithful for so long and had such a huge impact and has led so many people to Christ and baptized them, to say, "I believe in you," him saying that to me, because regardless of what you think of my public presentation or my bluster or bravado or whatever, there's a lot of doubts, right? There's a lot of imposter syndrome. And it's so interesting when Satan starts to attack me with some of the imposter syndrome stuff. I go back to the words of Phil Robertson and him saying, "Look, you were ordained to do this and God's got his hand all over you. Just keep going." And I've just been reminding these last several weeks about, the scripture in Romans 1:16. And this is, where they get the name of their show, Unashamed. But it's, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes, to the Jew first and also to the Greek." And that's the thing is you want to talk about unashamed of the gospel? It just came up. No matter who he was interacting with, no matter who he was talking to, it was gospel first, whether it's Donald Trump or just some random drug addict that, falls into the shop one day. It's always gospel. And it's just so poignant and so interesting for me that after half a century of serving the Lord, that he is now walking with him in heaven, right? And something tells me there's a bunch of ducks up there in heaven that are not very thrilled that Phil Robertson is there. We can't know that for sure, but it just kind of is what it is. But I want to end this section right here before we get into the meat of what we're doing today with a quote from the Unashamed podcast. So this was a quote from, a few years ago, but this was Phil on the show saying, "Hey, when I die, don't cry. Dance, sing, but don't cry when I die. When I die, you say, 'He made it.'" So I'll say for me, I haven't done a great job of holding to those words over these last couple of weeks just because of the impact that he's had. But this is a joyous thing. And when I've talked to the family members, it's joyful, right? There is no question at all where Phil Robertson is today, and just knowing that he got to hear the words, "Welcome in, my good, welcome to heaven, well done, my good and faithful servant." I mean, that is something that is so incredible, and that is a man of all men that I've ever known that certainly finished well. Hey guys, real quick. I know a lot of you guys are really doing everything you can to have a consistent workout routine, but the problem is you work out at a Globo gym. And so there's 17 guys on the bench that you need, and there's people doing bicep curls on the squat rack. And the biggest problem is not your schedule. It's actually where you're trying to get your work in. How about you guys stop making excuses and build yourself a home gym? And when you do, make sure you use Sorinex. So Sorinex is a family-owned and operated business that builds some of the most impressive workout facilities in the entire world. They built gyms for teams in the NFL, MLB, NBA, NHL, and even the UFC. They've also built gyms for some of the biggest and most successful collegiate and high school athletic programs in the country. But in addition to that, they make the highest quality home gym products that I've ever seen on the market. In my personal home gym, I have the Sorinex Outfitter Rack, the heavy version in military green. Also, I have some of their center mass bells. I've got their Nordic glute ham developer and their patented landmine attached to my rack. So guys, stop fighting the riffraff at your local gym or bench or squat rack or whatever. And if you're going to build out a home gym, you may as well get one that will last you and one that you could even pass down to your kids. Begin your build out by going to Sorinex.com. That is Sorinex.com, Sorinex.com. Take control of where and when you work out, Sorinex.com. All right, guys, let's get down to business. So last year, many of you were here for this, but some of you are new to this. We announced the launch of our new discipleship coaching program called Dominion. Okay, so we essentially created this program because you guys demanded it. Okay, so 2016 we launched Undaunted.Life. We launched it with the Bible app, the devotional on the Bible app, and then in 2017 we start the podcast. And since that time period, guys, I've had interactions with thousands of you guys, whether it's in person or through direct messages or emails through our website, and from men all over the globe. And I was getting the same comments for years and years and years, right? And it was basically like, I know I need more of God's guidance in my life, but I have no idea where to start. I used to be able to focus and get a lot of things done, but I feel like I've lost my mojo. Okay, I know that I'm not working out like I should, and I've kind of gotten a little bit out of shape, but look, I'm really busy, or, I don't have any guys like what you talk about, your 3 a.m. guys, your foxhole guys. I don't really have guys that I can count on, and I guess that's just the way that it is. I feel like I'm constantly letting my wife and kids down. I don't know how to fix it. I can't find a church that focuses on men, a man-friendly church, so I just kind of stay home and do whatever I want. I'm sick of all this darkness that's all around me, but I don't know the best way to fight back against it. And then the last thing that I would kind of get from all these guys is, look, I've read the devotionals, Kyle. I've listened to every episode of the podcast. I've watched your interviews on other people's shows, but I want more. I want more. I want you to equip me to push back darkness. And that's why we started the Dominion program, okay? So we did a private launch for Dominion Team 1 just to kind of see, like, beta test it. Is this going to be a thing? And it was so successful right out of the gate. I mean, it just went so spectacularly well. We opened up our website for applications for Team 2, okay? And, it really didn't take you guys very long, but again, anytime I launch anything, whether it's the Forging Table or the Daily Blade, and certainly with Dominion, I kind of have this initial pessimism where I just assume that it's not going to work out. But I mean, there were, I can't remember, I think it was over 50 applications before I even woke up on day one, because this podcast comes out at 3 a.m. And so in a few hours, we had so many applications. I mean, we were absolutely blown away by the response. I think we had, for that initial push, we had several hundred people that put in applications. And the problem is like, I like to stay lean. It's basically me and an editor, right? There's nobody that responds to my messages for me. Like, I'm in everything. So that's kind of good because I get to control things and the quality, but also I become the limitation. And so I told people it was going to be first come, first serve in terms of the interviews, because you put in an application, I look through the application. If I think you've got the mindset for this, then we'll move on to an interview, and guys got to do interviews with me. And so we ended up launching 2 more teams. We did Team 2 and Team 3 when my intention was just to launch one more team. And the thing that I had to do, which I hated, is I had to move hundreds of guys straight to the wait list, right? Because it was just me. I was setting the interviews. I was conducting the interviews. I was offering the program to guys that I thought it would be a fit for, getting guys signed up and getting them, all those things squared away and all the logistics. And so by the time I was done and I got these 2 teams full, I was like, okay, I just can't do anymore. I can't add any more to my plate. But what I've done over the last several months is I now have a team in place of guys that are ready to go, so that we can extend and expand this program considerably, okay? So all of you guys that were waitlisted, you should have been contacted by now. If for whatever reason you have been contacted, go look at your spam, but we're sending text messages to you guys, emails to you guys. Y'all got the early access before this podcast, right? So make sure you get in and take care of that. But we wanted to make sure the number of men that wanted to be equipped in this very special, unique, and direct way, that they would be able to do so. And so now it's time for teams 4 and beyond, okay? So in terms of the Dominion program itself, how this goes is, so you're a guy, you're struggling in one way or another, some of the ways that we described earlier. You're struggling with spiritual, mental, and physical resilience. You're just not really getting it. And you don't have a foxhole with anybody in it, and you just know that you're missing the mark, but for whatever reason, you can't figure out how to fix it. So I created the Dominion program, which provides a plan to address those issues, okay? Helps you create community, and then calls you to action, right? Execution. And if you choose our path, right, really seize the process of Dominion, your overall godly manliness will go up considerably. You will take dominion over the world around you. So hence the name of the program. And the reality is, if you don't put it in an application, or if you don't sign up to be a part of the program, you're likely just going to stay stuck in neutral. stay in this perpetual state of malaise, which will certainly lead to regret and bitterness later. And so what I can say for this program is these initial teams, they've really literally seen major life change. Okay. And so we actually did a video. It's just a 1-minute video that we'll play right now. But I just want y'all to kind of get a sense of the real men that were going through this program. So we put this video together that we made during one of our Dominion meetups that happened this year. So check this out.
Dominion is life-changing.
I can do harder things than I even thought I could, and it's instilled confidence in my life.
This is the type of guy you say you want to be for your family, for your community. Okay, well then actually do it. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire.
I've needed guidance, just being able to share my faith more. Kyle's given me the tools that I've needed to be bold in stepping up and helping push back darkness in my community.
If I were not in the Dominion program, I would probably still be searching for purpose. I have learned how to hone in and have focus on direction and standards.
For anyone on the fence about joining Dominion, the devil owns the fence, so just do it. It'll be worth your time. You'll grow, connect with guys out there.
If you join this Dominion program, you will not be the same afterwards. So if you want to go, let's go. All right, guys, and if that wasn't enough to kind of give you an idea, and again, you should really go watch that on YouTube, or you can just go to Undaunted.Life/Dominion. The video's on there. But listen to these quotes, okay? These are from actual guys that are on the Dominion program. So Landon, I'll go ahead and have this. That's our editor, so shout out to Landon. Here are some quotes that I want to make sure we put up on the screen, and if we don't put it up on screen, you guys will get the idea. But this is a quote from Clark. He's a 58-year-old retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major. Being part of Dominion has been life-changing and has given me a platform to stop just talking about developing godly men and instead actually doing something about it. Okay, Brad, a 40-year-old substation tech. I was tired of sitting on the sidelines, so when I got the opportunity to level my game up as a man, I jumped. Dominion has helped me in all areas of Christian manhood and pushing back darkness. If you feel stuck, this is the program you need. This is Bill, a 40-year-old small business owner. You will likely know what you need to do. What Kyle and the Dominion program have done for me is they have really pushed me beyond just having good ideas, but to executing on them. And last one here, Mark, a 38-year-old technical manager. Having a supportive group of godly men to rely on has significantly strengthened me. The daily challenges of pushing back darkness are demanding, but being part of a community that demands growth in areas of family, business, and fitness has been invaluable. And so I want you to hear from those guys, but for the rest of this week, just so you can know, basically from tomorrow through Saturday, I'm going to be releasing some short interviews with people that have actually been on Dominion teams. So tomorrow's I'm actually super excited about because there's a Dominion wifey that is going to be on there as well. But I want you to listen to the stories of what these men have done because these guys are you, okay? These are undaunted lifers. These are people that love our content. These are people that are lean forward type guys. These are Christians, and these are also guys that know they've got some areas that they could really use some significant improvement, and that's what this program is going to focus on. So, guys, as of this morning, so today, Tuesday, June the 3rd of 2025, applications for teams 4 and beyond have opened on our website, okay? So it's been all wait list. Now they are open, okay? So there's a link in the show notes to this, or you can just go to Undaunted.Life/Dominion. Again, www.Undaunted.Life/Dominion. So it's not a very long application, but we just need to really get an idea of who you guys are. And if we like your application, we do have people standing by. I've never been able to say that in my life, but we literally have people that are standing by, making sure that you are squared away, that you can get your application seen, and then you get an interview scheduled if the application is good. And here's the thing, the applications, they're going to be reviewed, and the interviews are going to kind of happen on a first come, first served basis. So if you want in on this program, don't dilly-dally, because the deadline for applications is Monday, June the 30th at 5 p.m. Monday, June the 30th, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time, but do not wait, okay? Because if we fill up, because I kind of have a number of teams that I'm wanting to run and a number of guys I'm wanting to coach over the next 6 months, just don't wait. I'm just telling you, don't wait until the end of the month or put it off. If you want to be a part of this program, do it now. Like, not while you're driving, but, pull over, put in an application, okay? Now, you might be asking, some of you, like, why do we have to fill out an application? Why do we have to do an interview? Why can't I just sign up for this? Why do we need to be ready and willing to, invest a significant amount of time, effort, and capital in this program? I just want to simplify it for you guys, okay? Because I'm looking for killers. okay? I'm looking for dogs. And the thing is if you're not willing to put in the time, effort, and capital to be a part of this program, then you shouldn't be in the program. Like, I'm not looking for guys that are just like, yeah, this program sounds kind of cool. It's kind of a cool name, cool logo. It'd be kind of cool to hang out with Kyle and, get some coaching from him. But, I'll see if I can get around to it, just whatever. No, I mean, sorry, this just isn't going to be a program for you. Okay. This is an exclusive program. We don't take everybody that wants to come into it. Right? It's an exclusive program. I'm looking for the right number of guys for team 4 and 5 and 6 and beyond, right? I'm looking for dudes that want to become top tier men. Okay? Because if you can't fill out a short application, and if you don't have the willingness or capability to put in the time, effort, and personal capital to be a part of this, like, it's not, okay, no big deal. Just Dominion isn't the program for you. So I hope you find what you need somewhere else. We're just providing you with a pathway here through the Dominion program. Okay? But for those of you that do get onto a Dominion team, I can guarantee you this, and I said this back when we launched and announced the program, you will get results. You will become the godly husband, father, man overall that you've always dreamed of being, and you will take Dominion. So don't wait. Get in your applications. We have our team standing by. Undaunted.Life/Dominion. Again, Undaunted.Life/Dominion. Hey guys, real quick. So there you are. You're about to make some delicious meat, and you open up your cabinet, and you freeze. You freeze because you look and you see you have like 3 or 4 dozen different seasonings, but this seasoning is just for your wild game, and this seasoning is really good on pork, but not really good on chicken, and you just kind of lose your mind and eventually just reach up there and grab a random one. So here's the thing, guys. I want you to stop getting jammed up by having too many options in the seasoning department. It's time for you to have a go-to seasoning for everything, and that's why I want to reintroduce you to my friends over at G's Seasoning. So this is a reintroduction because back in the day, I think this was over the winter, I told you guys about G's Seasoning. I was at my buddy Dale Brisby's house. We're about to shoot a podcast and all that, but he had made me some steaks, and I took one bite of this steak, and I was like, bro, what in the world was this seasoned with? He gave me a bottle of G's Seasoning. He told me a little bit about the story about it being a small family-owned operation in Texas and how they used to, back in the 80s, just hand out bags of this seasoning out of the back of a store and things like that, but that they had started bottling it and started selling it. And then I told you guys, wouldn't it be so cool if for the Christmas season, if you guys bought some G Seasoning? And you know what you guys did? Y'all went out and bought it. And to those of you that have bought it, it has been an amazing thing for you. All of you have loved it, so I'm glad to reintroduce them to you. So G Seasoning is an all-purpose seasoning that is great on beef, pork, wild game, chicken, fish, eggs, veggies. And guys, if you want a big boy hack, throw some G's on some popcorn. You can thank me later. So guys, stop getting a bunch of different seasonings for all of your different meat dishes. Support a small town American family business by going to gsseasoning.com. That is gsseasoning.com. Throw some G's on that. Okay, again, that is gsseasoning.com. That's Golf Sierra Seasoning.com. Order today. All right, let's get on to the quick hitters here. The Church of 1122 in Jacksonville, Florida, baptizing almost 2,000 people. This is according to the state on May the 20th. In an extraordinary display of faith, the Church of 1122 gathered at Hannah Park Beach in Jacksonville, Florida, where 1,958 people publicly declared Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior through baptism. This follows last year's powerful beach baptism where 1,614 people were baptized. Participants traveled from across the country, including many from Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia, to be part of this annual event. Thousands more, including friends, family, and church members, came to cheer them on and celebrate what God is doing. So, obviously, you guys know I have a great relationship with Joe B. Martin and the Church of 1122, and so I'm just there. I'm kind of part of their stuff now, right? You know, Saturated and, you know, the men's conference coming up in October and their hunt encounter that they do. But one of their executive pastors, Britt, he reached out, or, you know, he was with me, I think it was before the hunt encounter. He's like, yeah, man, you should come to beach baptism next year. And originally we had some ideas where we were going to be doing some interviews down on the beach and, you know, doing some podcast type stuff. And we just eventually decided, like, there's so much logistics of 10,000 plus people being on the same beach at the same time that it was like, okay, let's not worry about, you know, good internet connection in the middle of the beach in the middle of, you know, May or something like that. And so it's like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And what's cool about it is I went ahead and did a Dominion meetup. So Dominion's Team 2 and Team 3 3, we met up in Jacksonville a couple of days before beach baptism. And so we worked out, we broke bread, we did some jujitsu with Mike Dragich and Garrett Gross. And it was an awesome time. And we got to hang out. And several of those guys were able to go to Thursday night service at Church of 1122 or Sunday morning to hear Joby preach. And some of them even came out to the beach that day. One guy, his wife was one of the people that got baptized that day. One of our Dominion guys, his wife. Like, it was incredible. And so, like, we go out to the event, and, I'm just riding with Joby in his car. And so we don't have to fight the traffic and get all there. And so we get there, there's so many people, right? And it's ridiculously hot, right? So it's near 100 degrees with, Florida humidity. And there's so many people. It's kind of a well-oiled machine, right? So it wasn't like chaos. But basically, we have this entire state park, essentially, but we have the entire beach, and there's these long lines of people that are kind of broken down into whatever Church of 1122 campus they attend, right? And so the previous day, Joby had hurt his shoulder, right? Like getting out of bed, right? Because he's old and decrepit, right? So his body's just falling apart. And so he hurts his shoulder. And so he basically told me, he's like, yeah, Kyle, you're just on my team. And there's going to be several of us out there. It was like his brother and, a couple other folks that are really tight with the church. And so he was just going to do all the talking that day, and we were going to do all the dunking, because you're in the ocean, right? And so the waves are coming, and we're having to keep an eye on if we're about to get washed out by a wave, and we were drifting all day. But I kind of felt this anxiety and excitement to baptize people, because I've always wanted to baptize somebody, but I never had the opportunity. And I just knew I was going to get to baptize a lot of people that day. So we get a little bit of food, we go out to the water, and then, they hear the horn blow, not the trumpet, right? The trumpet didn't sound, but the horn blew, and then they started baptizing people. And I just remember the first lady that came out, because I was the guy on our little baptism team to where if there was an older lady or someone that needed some assistance, or a kid, that was my job to go retrieve them, bring them out, make sure they get back safe and all those types of things. And so doing a little bit of extra physical duty, which I'm obviously okay with. And I just remember the first lady that we got out there, and Joby asks his questions, which is basically who is Jesus to you? They say, my Lord and Savior. And do you renounce any agreements or ties that you have with anything demonic or dark or anything of this world and those types of things? And then they renounce all of those ties. And then he says, now I baptize you, my brother or sister, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Dunk, raise them up, and then freak out, right? The beach goes nuts. We go nuts. It's this great thing. But this first baptism, right? I'm on this lady's left, and I'm just looking at her in the eye the whole time, because I've never baptized anybody. And you could see she was overwhelmed with emotion and, kind of the moment, right, about to be baptized. And then we dunk her and we get her out. And I just look at her in her eyes, and just the relief and the excitement and it was such a beautiful moment. And I just remember getting well, I'm glad we're already covered in water, because I'm probably gonna start crying. And that happened because we baptized for the next 2.5, 3 hours, right? Just boom, just one right after the other, one right after another, the whole beach, right? Because there were all these lines, and at different points I would just get really caught up, right? Because we would baptize a husband, right? And then he would take our spot, and then he would help baptize his wife, and then they would turn around and they would baptize their kids, right? And just the tears that people were shedding, and the stories and the excitement. But there was one thing, and at the time I didn't know what was going on. There was one group, okay? And so they all kind of came out, because you've got your friends and family and people that are on the beach, and some of them would come out to the water with you. But we were baptizing these women, and I'm literally getting chills thinking about this right now. And it was there was electricity in the water, because these women were so excited, and they were so overwhelmed with emotion, and their supporters were so overwhelmed with emotion, and it just felt different than some of the other baptisms, right? Because this is amazing for each and every person that got baptized, but it was just different. And we baptized these 6 gals in a row, and before I go and get the next person, Joby kind of pulls me in and says, hey, those last 6 women that we just baptized, they were saved from sex trafficking this year. Yeah. Part of the Tim Tebow Foundation thing and all that, those girls were being trafficked, being sexually extorted, right? And they were saved because of the work of the Tim Tebow Foundation and the Church of 1122. And then they were saved by the gospel of Jesus Christ, right? I mean, my goodness, right? And he didn't have to tell me that. I mean, he wasn't keeping it a secret, but he leaned in, and it was just so interesting, because I was yeah, something felt very, very different. And so we wrap up, we end up, wrapping up, we go back to the tent. And I remember Joby saying that no matter what, like, keep your wet clothes on, because as it always happens after we're done and we're thinking about leaving, somebody walks up and says they want to get baptized. And that happened. We ended up baptizing a family that got there. I mean, there were people that came from South Dakota to get baptized. Like, it was just this whole thing. But eventually we did get done and we did get wrapped up. And I was part of baptizing 1,958 people. I think our line, I don't know, a couple hundred maybe. Like, I'm sure exactly how many, but certainly in the triple digits. And we're walking back to Joby's truck, and he goes, "Hey man," and this wasn't like a braggadocious thing. This was just kind of like a thing. He says, "Hey man, do you realize that you baptize more people today than some pastors will baptize in their entire lives, in their entire ministry?" And that's just the reality. Like, there's something going on with Church 1122. There's something with the anointing that Joby has and those elders have and the different pastors that are working as a part of that ministry have. And if you think I'm just like, swinging from Joby's nuts because he's my buddy and, we're good friends and he's my mentor and all that, like, bro, how many times do I need to tell y'all I call balls and strikes and I judge the people closest to me the harshest? Right? I may not always talk about it on the show, but I judge these people very harshly. But there's just a tremendous thing going on with that ministry. I'm thrilled to be a part of it. It's just something that I'm going to do now. And so, like, my wife she was not thrilled that she didn't get to come. It's just the logistics didn't work out. And so next year we're going to make sure she's there, that the boys are there. The boys were so excited. Like, my wife did a great job of just telling my boys, like, Dad's helping men out in Florida, and also he's helping baptize people and getting to explain what baptism is. So it's just awesome. So I know it took a while to set this up, but my big takeaway on this one is, if baptism at your local church doesn't look like a blowout party, you need to change that. Okay? Not everybody has a beach. Not everybody has the logistics to baptize, 2,000 people and make sure 12,000 people are fed that came to watch and all the things. Like, look, I get it. But most of the churches that I've been in and gone to, when someone gets baptized, it's, isn't that sweet? That's just precious. That's so good for them. Good for them, right? Maybe your family's there. Maybe someone's taking a picture. Maybe you go to Applebee's afterwards. But it's not really like a blowout party. And so for my boys, James is 5, Eli's 3, obviously my fervent daily prayer is that they would find the Lord, right? Or that the Holy Spirit would reveal Jesus to them and that they would put their faith in him and all those types of things. And I'm just going to tell you this right now. Ain't nobody baptizing those boys except me. You understand? I'm not letting some third-tier pastor at some random church dunk my kids, some guy that has no relationship with my kids whatsoever. Ain't happening, okay? And that ain't a pride thing. That ain't a, hey, everybody look at dad thing. That's because I want to make sure it is a party. It is a blowout. We're going to have fireworks. We're going to have confetti. We're going to go nuts, okay? Because if your level of crazy during someone's baptism is less than that of your level of crazy when your favorite football team scores a touchdown, or your favorite baseball team hits a grand slam, or your favorite soccer team, if that's what you're into, kicks a game-winning goal or PK or something like that, then you got it all wrong. Because we lose our ever-loving minds when our favorite team or player or fighter or whatever does what we prefer for them to do, but we always just kind of golf clap when somebody indicates that they are going to be in the Lamb's, their name's in the Lamb's book of life, and that they have everlasting life with God in heaven. Okay? So we're going to go crazy for you guys. I would highly suggest that you do that. There's nothing that says who can baptize and who cannot. I mean, what was that guy? Russell Brand was baptizing people here recently. People were like, he shouldn't be baptizing people. He's not equipped to do so. I'm sorry, I don't see any dictates for who can and can't baptize people. I'm a podcaster, okay? And I helped baptize a couple hundred people, okay? So if you're not blowing it out for baptism, you need to do it. Take a page out of the book of Church 1122. All right, next quick hitter here. Former President Joe Biden's cancer and one of the biggest scandals in American presidential history. So this is according to the AP on May the 19th. Former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer, his office said Sunday. The finding came after the 82-year-old reported urinary symptoms, which led doctors to discover a nodule on his prostate. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer on Friday, with the cancer cells having spread to the bone. While this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management, his office said. The president and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physicians. In a post on X on Monday morning, Biden posted a photo of himself and his wife, Jill Biden, and wrote, "Cancer touches us all. Like so many of you, Jill and I have learned that we are strongest in the broken places. Thank you, and thank you for lifting us up with your love and support." So there's a lot of things here that I'm just going to kind of flow on that can all be true at once. The first thing is that we should all be praying for Joe Biden. We should all be praying for Joe Biden. There's no indication from public comments and public beliefs that Joe Biden is a Christian, that he's put his faith in Jesus for the propitiation of his sin debt. There's no indication of that. Okay. He's a Catholic, so he thinks he can just do a bunch of works and, just say some things out loud and he gets to go to heaven or purgatory and then to heaven or whatever made up bullcrap. But he's just not. So we should pray that he becomes a follower of Christ before he passes on. Because even if it's not the cancer that kills him, he's going to die someday. He's got to make sure that he's all squared away. So we should, believe that. But also, we have to realize that they knew he had cancer. Okay? A lot of people have already reported on this, but prostate cancer moves slowly over a long period of time. I know this personally because I have some very close family members that are going through this right now. This is not like, you just wake up one day, you have trouble peeing, and then, stage 4 cancer and it's in the bones. No, that's not how this goes. So the question is not, why didn't they find it? It's for how long did they know and keep it from the American people? Because I would stake my life on it that he knew he had cancer and the entire administration knew that he had cancer, or at least the inner circle, while he was president, okay? While he was running for president. And that is something that is owed to the American people. We are owed that information, okay? Because if you have cancer, that means that you are not fit to lead, right? You can't be in charge of the military. You can't be in charge of policy. You can't be in charge of any of those things, okay? So we were lied to about that. That was a sin of omission because they didn't tell us that. But also, we already knew he had dementia, right? These people were like, he got bad during his presidency. No, he was bad when he was running for president whenever he beat Donald Trump, right? He was bad then. He couldn't get his sentences together then. People pretend like we were just made aware of the fact that he had these mental issues when he had the debate with Donald Trump this last cycle where he just got pantsed, right? No. Like we knew this for the entire time. And if it weren't for COVID, again, this kind of goes off into conspiracy land, but if it weren't for COVID, if he couldn't have just literally ran his entire campaign from the basement of his house, right? If he had to hit the campaign trail and do a bunch of in-person things, this would not have gone well for him, okay? So you have to ask, who was running the country? And the answer is his inner circle, right? Chief of staff, his closest advisors. There's been a lot made about the pins that he was signing, like auto-signing all these documents and everything like that. This guy was not running the country, right? There were probably days, and I don't mean this to be funny at all, there were probably days where he woke up in the White House and was like, What? Why am I not in Delaware? There were probably days he had to be reminded, I'm the commander in chief. I'm the president of the most dominant hegemonic nation in the history of the planet. So who was running the country? The cabal of evil people that had to get together to prop him up, only to discard him, which, gives new credence to, why did they do this? Why did they, kill off his chances so early? Right? Why did they do this debate so earlier than any other debate had been done? They probably wanted him to go out there and die on screen. And then they just put in Kamala Harris, who had never received a vote for president. And they just tried to make her seem like she was the fresh new person of the Democratic Party, the one that was going to be the standard bearer going into the future. They thought they could just pull the old switcheroo because obviously the mainstream media was in cahoots with them to get this entire thing done. You have Jake Tapper releasing a book with all these details exposing what none of us knew about Biden, which anyone with a functioning brain and one set of eyes could absolutely see. And he was one of the guys that was covering up for Biden and covering up and castigating people that would even possibly say that he had an issue. It's like, he's like, no, Laura Trump, he's not mentally handicapped or compromised. He just has a stutter. And how dare you go after somebody that has a stutter? So there's so much to talk about in a story like this. Some people are like, that happened back in the day. Why does it matter? I don't know, because it's the biggest scandal ever. Because the person who was the president wasn't technically the president. They weren't in their right mind. You hid the fact that he was dying of cancer, right, from the entire American public leading up to an election, which affects how people vote. Yeah, this is a tremendous scandal. But I'm taking a little bit of shift here so that I can go right to the big takeaway. Joe Biden's wife, Jill, is a she-devil. Jill Biden might be one of the most evil women in all of public life, certainly here in America. What an awful, awful, terrible woman. Because assuming that Joe Biden had cancer maybe for years, and obviously what we know is that he was mentally handicapped, like he shouldn't be able to drive a Lincoln, much less run the country, and Jill Biden just propped him up. Kept lying. Every time she talked about her husband, she would lie, right? Why? So that she could have power. So that she could have validation, right? So that she could have her opinion heard and have that turned into policy. Other members of the Biden family in the inner circle are just as bad. But Jill, at her marriage ceremony, made a covenant before a holy, just, and existent God that she was going to be a helpmate fit for her husband, that she would be at his side and assist him. Because I can tell you right now, Mrs. Undaunted, Kelsey, she would never have allowed something like that, right? She would have been the one to say, look, I understand a lot of y'all are dependent on my husband, all these different things. He can't do it. He ain't doing it. And I'm his helpmate. And guess what? There's only one vote, and it's mine. And it's not happening, right? And a lot of you guys have lionesses out there that live in your house and sleep in your bed that are the exact same way. But that's not what Joe Biden did. Jill Biden decided that her desires and the desire for power and money, certainly gobs and gobs of money, was way more important than protecting her husband. What an awful, terrible woman she is. All right, next quick hitter here. This is a really big, complicated story, but I'm glad we're finally getting to it. A brain-dead woman being kept alive to save her unborn child. So this is according to the Daily Wire on the 17th of May. I'm just going to read the entire article. It is in the show notes as well. The mother of a brain-dead woman who is 21 weeks pregnant is upset that her daughter is being kept alive to save the unborn child, a baby boy. April Newkirk has told the press that her 30-year-old daughter, Adriana Smith, is being kept alive by ventilators, blaming Georgia's pro-life law, which bans abortion of unborn babies after 6 weeks gestation, with some exceptions. Newkirk says doctors told her that she's not allowed to take her daughter off the ventilators so they can protect and save her grandson. It should have been left up to the family, Newkirk said, according to NBC News. I'm not saying that we would have chose to terminate her pregnancy, but what I am saying is that we should have had a choice. It's not entirely clear if Georgia's abortion law is the reason Smith is being kept alive. A spokesman for Emory Healthcare, the healthcare system overseeing Smith's care, said that they use consensus from clinical experts, medical literature, and legal guidance to support our providers as they make individualized treatment recommendations in compliance with Georgia's abortion laws and all other applicable laws. Our top priorities continue to be the safety and well-being of the patients we serve, the spokesperson added. In Georgia, an unborn child cannot be killed via abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy, except in rare cases like the health of the mother, rape, incest, or some fetal abnormalities. Back in February, when Smith was 9 weeks pregnant with her second child, she began feeling unwell and suffering severe headaches. When she went to a nearby hospital and was given medication. The following day, however, Smith's boyfriend says the 30-year-old was gasping for air and making gargling noises when she woke up. Smith was eventually transferred to Emory University Hospital, and a CT scan showed multiple blood clots in her brain, NBC News noted. Ventilators have been keeping Smith breathing for months, Newkirk said. It's torture for me, she said. I see my daughter breathing, but she's not there. Newkirk added that her family is having to incur costs to keep Smith on life support. So there's so many things on this story that I want to get into. First, the pro-abortion argument. In this case, the main one at least, is that the family should be able to choose whether or not this baby should live or die. You heard that from this woman's mother, right? That the family should be able to choose. Well, whoopsies, I have a couple of questions. Don't y'all, pro-abortion people, don't y'all think that it's the mama's choice, right? My body, my choice, the easiest slogan to remember. But in my body, my choice applies to the womb possessor, right? I mean, in y'all's parlance, the womb possessor, the womb haver. But now it's my body, our choice? This is like a committee meeting to decide whether someone should be killed? And are you sure, right? Are you sure that Adriana Smith wanted her baby boy to die with her? Are you sure? Again, her body, her choice, but you don't know that. You're purporting to know that. You're talking to the media as if you know that. But if it is truly, if y'all really believe this, my body, my choice, it's up to her. And if she can't give her consent, that just means it automatically goes to you? Why? Please explain. Also, the Georgia law has provisions, as I said in the article, for the health of the mother, rape, incest, and fetal abnormalities, but it shouldn't. No truly pro-life law would, because the health of the mother thing is not a real thing. Like there's not a single woman in America right now that where she's going to have some sort of complication, and I've talked about a lot of these over the years, some sort of complication that's going to take her life to where she can't get treatment because of the baby inside of her, okay? The worst case scenario is that you deliver baby, right? Even if baby's chances of survival outside the womb are very, very small, you do what you can to preserve both lives, okay? So the health of the mother thing's not really a thing. Rape or incest, I don't think that babies should get the death penalty because of something their fathers did. Okay, so if you are raped and impregnated, that's not the baby's fault. If it was an incestuous rape, it is not the baby's fault. Okay, and then fetal abnormalities, what you are saying is because this baby might not come out looking normal, whatever normal means to you, that the baby is not worthy of life. And I'm sorry, you can't be pro-life and support any of those things. Also, we should be praying hard for this baby to leave the womb alive and to end up in a family that will raise them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, okay, this little baby boy. Because as of right now, it looks like they're going to do everything they can to make sure this baby is delivered and alive. But then is it going to go to live with this family, like grandparents that clearly don't want it to be alive? That's maybe not a great situation. Hopefully it gets put up for adoption, and we should just pray that the Lord is glorified in this situation. And also this family, I know I'm kind of talking about them in a negative light. They are in a tough spot. This is a very, very tough spot. They are incurring medical bills that they weren't foreseeing, right? There's this thought of having to raise this child, but that doesn't mean that we should be okay with them defaulting or resorting to murder. I mean, two things can be true at once. I'm sorry for your plight and your situation. Also, you can't murder someone to get out of it. Because like right now, I've got a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, right? It'd be a lot cheaper on our family if they weren't here, right? Wouldn't have to pay for as much food or private schooling or for activities or clothes or any of the things, right? So why can't I kill them now? Like what is magical about the vaginal canal in terms of conferring personhood and our ability to be able to protect these people? Do you have an answer for that? Because again, you're making the same arguments that I can make right now about my toddler. He's 3 years old. He is adding nothing to our household, right? And for the most part, he's just a suck on resources and time and energy, right? Why can't I kill him? Again, as a pro-abortion person, as a pro-choicer, why can't I kill either of my children? Using your arguments. Let's go to the big takeaway here. As a pro-lifer, okay, I'm talking to you, the pro-lifers in the audience, you must train yourself and become comfortable with forcing the pro-abortion side to make the affirmative case as to why we should kill unborn children. Okay, so if I was talking to this young lady's mother, right, the one who's making all these media appearances, I would be like, can you please make the affirmative case for why we should kill your grandson? Because I don't have to make the case for why they should stay alive, because we all inherently know that we're supposed to do that. We're not just willy-nilly taking human life. We are to very directly and expressly protect human life and protect the ability and possibility of human flourishing, right? But if you're one of these people that's on the outside that's just aghast that these horrible, evil doctors would possibly keep this woman on a ventilator so that her baby boy has a chance of surviving outside the womb, give me the affirmative case as to why we should snuff out that life as opposed to trying to save it. Okay, so pro-lifer, stop accepting the defensive position. Stop accepting the position with your shoulders against the wall behind you. You are in the moral, righteous position. Once you have the high ground, it is up to you to keep it. All right, next quick hitter here. 2 Israeli diplomats being murdered in Washington, D.C. by someone screaming, "Free, free Palestine." So this is according to Fox News on May the 21st. A pro-Palestinian man is in custody after allegedly killing 2 Israeli embassy staff members who were leaving an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday night, authorities confirmed. The Embassy of Israel to the United States identified the victims as Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Milgram, who were set to be engaged. Stephen Jensen, the FBI's assistant director in charge of the Washington field office, said the agency will be investigating the heinous crime for hate crime motivation or ties to potential terrorism. A 31-year-old man identified as Elias Rodriguez of Chicago is believed to have committed the act alone and is in custody. Metropolitan Police Department Chief Pamela Smith said, adding that this gun was also recovered. FBI agents are now looking through the writings they believe were authored by Rodriguez. In Chicago, state, local, and federal agencies are searching his apartment Thursday, police sources told Fox News. So as a quick aside, can we just get rid of this whole distinction of a hate crime, like hate crime laws? It's so dumb. It's so dumb. Like, if you murder somebody, we know you hate them. Like, does the flavor of hate matter? Oh, you hate this person because of their race. Oh, you hate this person because of their ethnicity. Okay, you murdered them, right? So let's let the murder charge be the primary charge. This hate crime thing, it's just foolish. I don't really understand it. But let's go to my big takeaway on this one. There's still a lot that we don't know about this situation, okay? Is Elias Muslim or a recent convert to Islam? You know, it's very likely, but we don't know that for sure yet. By the time this comes out, there will be even more information. I'm recording this quite a bit in advance of the release. Is Elias a leftist? I mean, there's a 99.999999% chance, yes, he's a leftist. But even without knowing everything, we do know that this is a downstream consequence of radical anti-Semitism, which is fueled by the political left in this country and academia. We know that, okay? These chants of free Palestine from people that have never been there, right? Palestinians don't want to live in Palestine, right? If they could live somewhere else, they would love to come here, right? And many of them would love to kill all of us and take the land, right? Like that's kind of their thing. A lot of the Palestinians, the ones that are especially, because again, you have to remember the majority of the Palestinian population, not all of them, because there are Christians over there. There are people that don't like Hamas. The majority of the people living in Palestine are pro-Hamas. They're pro-Hamas. You know how we know that? They elected them to be in power. And if there was an election held today in that, I guess you can call it a country, but in that territory, they would elect Hamas again. The public, the general populace of that country loves what happened on October the 7th. They wish they could have killed more Jews. They wish that there had been more Americans there while they were killing Israelis so that they can say that they killed all kinds of Westerners. They killed the Jewish devils and the white devils of America, right? They would have just loved it, okay? But now you have people, because again, this guy seems like this is an American who is radicalized here. What was he radicalized by? By leftist academicians and leftist mainstream media members that are saying that there is currently a genocide going on in Palestine that's being perpetrated by Israelis. Okay? So this guy in his twisted, effed up psychotic mind thought, I'm going to even the score a little bit by taking out 2 Israelis, right? Just 2 innocent young people that are, that are about to get engaged. And I'm just going to take them out on the street as I scream free Palestine. But if I were talking to this person again, this person being as psychotic as they are probably isn't worth talking to. But if Israel were really perpetrating a genocide right now, it would be over. You moron. Let me ask you this. Does Hamas have an air force? No? They don't have an air force? Do they have any jets? Do they have any nuclear weapons? No? Okay. Israel clearly knows that. So if they wanted to eradicate Palestinians, eradicate everybody, to turn that entire area of the world into a parking lot, they could do it by the time we're done listening to this podcast. They could just level the entire place, right? But they're not doing that. They're conducting, a derivative of trench warfare in these tunnels, which again, these tunnel entrances are in children's bedrooms, in elementary school classrooms, in hospitals, right? Because Hamas, they're not fighting by anything from the Geneva Convention or any of those types of things. They are purposefully putting themselves behind the population so that if Israel accidentally kills a civilian, they can talk about it and take pictures and take video because they know that their leftist servants here in this country are going to say, look how evil Israel is. Look at this right now. And if you're kind of a soft-headed and soft-hearted person, you're going to buy that. You're going to be like, why is Israel being so mean? Right? Well, I don't know, but maybe because if Hamas came out of the tunnels with all the people that they stole and have been holding down there, The war ends today. It ends right at that moment. But they won't do that, right? Because they know they won't have to. Because they're not feeling the political pressure, because people in this country that hate Israel, that hate Jews, that are anti-Semites, they're going to constantly say Israel's bad, no matter what. If Israel hadn't killed a single civilian up to this point, they'd be saying the exact same things. Okay. Next one here. This is actually the last quick hitter of the day. Democrats revealing the one kind of refugee that they definitely do not want in the United States. So this is the kind of a situation that involves the United States of America and South Africa. So there's a couple of different stories, and there's a lot more to this, but we don't really have time to get into it because we're already coming up on an hour. So this is according to the Daily Wire on May the 20th and 21st. Tensions between the two countries have increased following the passage of South Africa's Expropriation Act, which allows the South African government to confiscate land without compensation. Trump issued an executive order in February saying the act ignored citizens' rights and enabled the government to seize ethnic minority Afrikaners, these are the white farmers in South Africa, agricultural property without compensation. The directive cut aid or assistance to South Africa and declared that the United States would promote resettling Afrikaner refugees. The Trump administration accepted 59 farmers who arrived in the United States on a chartered flight earlier this month through an expedited program. Democrats have denied that Afrikaners are being persecuted for their race and have criticized the Trump administration for resettling the refugees in the United States. Trump pushed back on these criticisms last week, saying the refugees happen to be white, but whether they're white or black makes no difference to me. And this is another article here from Daily Wire a day later. Julius Malema, a member of the National Assembly of South Africa, chanted, "Shoot to kill and kill the Boer," that's the South African white farmer, at a political rally in reference to the white Afrikaner population. At another event, he said that his political movement is cutting the throat of whiteness. The Episcopal Church's refugee resettlement wing, which has resettled migrants in the United States for decades, announced that it would refuse to help settle the Afrikaners for explicitly racial reasons. Episcopal Migration Ministries cited its steadfast commitment to racial justice and reconciliation as it announced its refusal to support the Afrikaners. The organization even said it would terminate its existing resettlement contract with the federal government over the controversy. "We have determined that by the end of the federal fiscal year, we will conclude our refugee resettlement grant agreements in the United States federal government," presiding Bishop Sean Rowe said. So quick thing on the Episcopal Church. It's just the Episcopal Church in name. This is not a Christian organization. This is not a Christian church. The things that they are doing, they're basically the religious arm of the left wing. That's essentially what they are, right? And so the mask has basically come off since 2020, since George Floyd overdosed in police custody, since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and certainly with a situation like this. This is not an actual denomination. If you're even vaguely attached to the Episcopal Church, you need to get out and go to a real church. But here's the thing about South Africa. South Africa is a failed state, okay? That's basically what we're seeing right now. They are in tremendous amounts of trouble. So this is one of those countries that if they weren't getting aid from countries like the United States of America, they would basically be Haiti, right? Which is probably the most failed of all states that we have currently in the world, okay? Now, there is a long apartheid, horrible, ugly, sinful, dark, racist history in this country. But what I can tell you is killing a white farmer in 2025 does not eradicate any atrocity that was done by a white person 100 years ago. Because that's not how anything works, okay? And South Africa is quickly going the way of Rhodesia. Maybe you don't know what Rhodesia is. Maybe you should brush up on your history. That's now Zimbabwe. Rhodesia used to be called the breadbasket of Africa, and now their people are starving. Because a lot of things that's happening in South Africa right now already happened in Rhodesia, and now we're in the situation that we are here. But my big takeaway here is the mask is off now. The Democratic Party in America is now openly racist towards white people that aren't Democrats. Openly racist. I mean, it's about time they showed us all who they really are, because this is the party of open borders, right? Don't believe me? Look at the millions of people that came across the border when Joe Biden was president versus the dozens of people that have snuck across since Donald Trump has been in office, okay? There is not a quote-unquote refugee that they wouldn't take in. Because here's the other thing about people that stream across our border. Almost none of those people are refugees from their country, right? Because a refugee, this is someone that if they stay in their country, that they're going to experience violence because of the local populace. Like, they are actually in danger. So if you live in Ecuador and you're poor and there's not, you don't have the education or the business skill or the opportunity to make a good living, and you want to come to this country and make a living, okay, that's fine. You can go through the front door and you can apply for citizenship and you can maybe get a green card and maybe eventually become a citizen down the road, but you're not a refugee. You're not a refugee. You just don't like where you live, okay? And you don't just get to move from your neighborhood to another neighborhood across town that you like better because it's not a thing, right? But with Democrats, it's like, sure, just come right on over, right? We'll build you a house. We'll give you a loan. We'll give you a driver's license, right? And eventually we'll legalize all of you so that you can vote so that Democrats never lose another national election ever again, right? But these people, they're white. They're capitalists. These are people that work hard. And so they want to come here because if they don't come here, they might be murdered on their farms. These are people that are actually experiencing persecution for existing. Okay? Some South Afrikaners are choosing to stay and defend themselves and whatever. Others, a lot with young families and all, they want to come here, right? Because they have a way to get out to where they're not worried about waking up in the middle of the night with an AK-47 pointed at their face, right? While their wife is in the next room being raped and chopped up by a bunch of, savages with machetes. Okay? So it's a slightly different situation, but Democrats are like, nope, we don't want them. We don't want those refugees. And the reason that they're anti this group of refugees is because of what I said earlier. They're white, they're capitalists, and these are people that seem to be fairly self-reliant, hardworking, conscientious people. We can't know that just by watching them get off of an airplane, but these were people that were running farms, they were running businesses. Now they're coming over here, and by every indication, they're going to be thankful to be here because the Trump administration brought them here, and they're not just going to come here and be a suck on the system, right? They're not going to be like a lot of people that claimed refugee status, claimed asylum, came here, and then didn't work. They sat around and they're getting paid by the United States government or by their local municipal government or something like that to basically just exist here and do nothing and provide nothing in terms of service to this country. Again, as an image bearer of God, I feel for them and I want them to be safe and I want them to be warm when it's cold and I want them to be cool when it's hot and I want them to have food in their belly and I want their kids to have a good education. I want all those things. But we don't just get to open our doors to the entire world to come here. Right? At some point, as a country, you have to stand on your own 2 feet and care for your own people. And if you're a young military-aged male, you're the one that's most ripe to do that and to turn that around in your home country. You don't have to come here to do that. And if you do come here, I'm all for that. Come through the front door, right? Come through the front door. Go through the process. It's a broken system. It doesn't work well, but it's the system that's in place. But the reason why Democrats especially hate these Afrikaners is because they know they are not future voters for the Democratic Party. Because they want to create an entire underclass of people in the United States that are dependent on them, dependent on a check from the federal government or a blue state government that keeps them fed, keeps them happy, keeps them quiet, and makes sure that they get to the polls on voting day. But if you're coming over here as a white Afrikaner, right, being brought over by the Trump administration, and you have conservative values, some of which are Christian, Democrats are like, nope, we don't want you. We can't control you. We can't make sure that you vote the way that we want you to vote, or we're turning off the spigot. And that's essentially where we are now. And I will say, as macabre as it is, I am thrilled the Democratic Party is finally just doing this openly, because the Democratic Party is in shambles right now. They're not dead, but they're certainly on the floor after just getting absolutely trounced in the general election with Trump taking over the White House, the Republicans keeping the House, and also taking the Senate. It's only looking worse and worse for them because the biggest people in their party are even more radical than Kamala Harris was or is, right? And they're not going to bring Kamala Harris back around for a part 2. Bernie Sanders is too old. AOC is polling right now, believe it or not. She'll still be in her 30s by the time 2028 comes around, I think, or she'll have barely crossed over into her 40s. And she's leading in these early polls about who should be the future of the Democratic Party, and she's left of Kamala Harris. She's probably left of Bernie. So the Democratic Party does not have a good bench. They do not have a good set of ideals. And right now, they seem to be doubling down on their form of racism. So keep that in mind the next time you go and vote blue or red. All right, guys, that'll do it for today. But before you go, do want to do a quick resilience boost. Again, donate to Undaunted.Life. We are a donation-based ministry, Undaunted.Life/donate, and apply for the Dominion program, guys. I'm telling you, get your applications in now. We are about to get flooded. We already had hundreds in the backlog, and we're going to get a whole bunch more. Undaunted.Life/Dominion, and then everything that I talked about in the main section and the quick hitters is there in the show notes as well. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to this, please subscribe, rate, and leave us a positive 5-star review. If you want me to come speak live at your event or on your podcast, just shoot me an email to info@undaunted.life. That's info@undaunted.life. Follow us on Instagram and like us on Facebook, and check out our website for everything else, including how to donate to keep more content like this coming your way. Just go to www.undaunted.life. And as always, we want to thank the band Holy Name for allowing us to use their music for our content. The music on this podcast is their song Perpetua, which is off their self-titled debut album on Face Down Records. The links are in the description. I'm your host, Kyle Thompson. Remember, keep pushing back darkness, keep forging spiritual, mental, and physical resilience, keep seeking the Lion of Judah.